really, really excited about today's interview with my friend Jae Yahkèl. He had a terrible accident in 2001. He was pronounced dead at the scene, and he spent 2 weeks in coma. And today he's here, and I'm really, really excited about today's interview because I know his experience will help so many of you. And I also know that his story will give you hope. So Jae, thank you for joining me.
Maya, thank you so much for allowing me to come on here and share with all of the people out there. Hello, everyone. And I hope this does help you along in your journey, because I know mine has been a long one. We're looking at going on 17 years now in this journey. So it's not something that happens overnight.
No.
So be prepared to stick in it for the long run.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, you had a terrible accident in 2001. So that's 16, 17 years ago. So can you share what actually happened? What kind of accident you had? And what kind of injuries you had? Because I know that there wasn't just one injury.
Right. So I was 19 at the time. I was leaving to go to a friend's house one morning. The night before, I had stayed up all night getting everything prepared. I was playing music in a band, so we were getting ready to go to a rehearsal. And I probably should have slept the night before because on the ride there, I did not make it to my friend's house. And I had a head-on collision because I had fell asleep while I was driving. So I hit a car in the lane to the left of me, head on, and I had sustained a number of injuries. I had bilateral ankle fractures, which were compounded, so the bone had come through the skin. My feet were both on backwards, which is shocking. Shocking to most when I tell people that, like, yeah, their feet were on backwards, they had to reset them forward, which was a minor injury in the eyes of the doctors, because the other injuries I had were a frontal lobe traumatic brain injury, as well as a what they doctors called in their write-up a hangman's fracture, which was a fracture of the C2 vertebrae, which is apparently when someone is hung, they say the C2 vertebrae is what breaks and that's what kills them. And so they wrote down the C2, and then later they described to me that that's also the fracture that the actor Christopher Reeve had.
Yeah.
Superman.
Yeah.
So that is the break that broke Superman. And they said, my injuries with my ankles were, of little concern because they were dealing with that. And as you said, I did spend 2 weeks in the coma after they decided to take me to the hospital, because their first inclination was that I was dead. The fatality squad came to the scene to pick me up. And I guess one of the first responders there then noticed that I did have a faint pulse. And so the flight squad, the med flight, came and they took me in a helicopter to the hospital. So thankfully the fatality squad didn't get there first and just take me away. So
wow, that's, when you told me, so when we met and you told me that, I was like, what? And my accident when I broke my ankle almost 5 years ago when I was rock climbing, it's such a tiny thing in comparison to you, but every injury is a horrible thing when it happens. So it doesn't matter what kind of injury you have, you still have struggles that you're going through. And when we met, you also shared with me something really fascinating. And that's that your parents got a call, and just a few minutes after you left your home. So can you share what actually happened?
Right. Well, this is a month or so later that my parents are telling me this now. That
Yeah.
They said that on the day of the accident, just a few minutes after I had left home, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, they said someone called the house and they thought it was a prank call because they said, you need to come to this street. Your son has been in a terrible accident. He needs your help. They said, that didn't happen. He just left the house. He's fine. Who is this? Why are you doing this? And the person on the line insisted, said, please come here quickly. He's in trouble. He needs you. And at that point, my father, he's a short-tempered man. So he's now angry. Says, who is this? You better stop now. I'm going to find out who this is. Why are you doing this? And he said what changed his mind is that he then heard me in the background say, Dad, help. And then he knew that it was real.
Wow.
He grabbed my mother. They jumped in the car. They ran every light. They sped to the scene and they got there. And they said when they had got there, they were using the jaws of life to try to open the car, to try to access me to where I was. And so they asked the first responders and people there, thank you so much. Who was it who called? We really appreciate it. We're so happy we're here. And they all said, no one called. We're the first people here. No one was here. And my father said, of course someone called. How would I be here to know that this had happened?
Yeah.
And they said, sir, there was no one here. A passerby called 911, but there was no one here with your son. That's the only reason we know that, to come is that someone saw an accident and that was it. And they said, no, someone was there with him at the scene. They said no one was there and they insisted and they said, okay, well, maybe someone was there, you guys don't know, and they called from his cell phone and they said the cell phone has been smashed, so no one called from your cell phone. So it was something to this day that my parents still tell everyone of this mysterious call. Don't know who it was, how it happened, but it alerted them and that got them.
Yeah, and you also said that after that they checked all the calls and actually there was no call.
Yes, so this is in the days of caller ID, like everyone has, and they said, well, when we get home, we'll know exactly who called, and there was no call for that day. There was nothing in the caller ID.
I get chills every time you tell me this because, I do believe that we are something greater and that our bodies are just the vehicle. And, it's such an amazing story. So thank you for sharing this. So when you got to the hospital, or actually better to say, when you woke up from your coma, so what kind of prognosis did the doctors give you?
I would have to be completely honest and say for that first months in hospitals, because it was in one hospital and then moving on to rehab hospitals and other things, any sort of prognosis or talk from doctors was in one ear and out the other. I was not trying to hear anything they had to say. It was truly devastating being 19. It's summertime. This happened in June. I'm saying, I'm a teenager. It's summertime. I'm going to have so much fun. I'm, playing music, hanging out with my friends. And then now they're saying, you can't even sit up. You're just going to be in this hospital bed. And, for a period of time, even after I had woke up, they still had the life support breathing tube in. So I wasn't even able to communicate and speak because they want to make sure that you can breathe on your own and still. So I'm, for probably a week, I still have that in me. So I can't even speak to people. So anything that doctors were saying to me about the prognosis, I really didn't listen to at the beginning.
Yeah.
Until after I was out of that. And then it was, well, you're probably going to be in a wheelchair, but with a whole lot of work, you might be able to, do things on your own. So they sent me to things like occupational therapy to learn how to get around in a wheelchair and, use the little like grabbing machines and things that I want to grab things with and learn how to live life in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And, you know, at 19, I said, there's no way I'm going to live life in a wheelchair. You know,
Yeah. So what actually happened? Because when we met, I didn't see you in a wheelchair.
Right. So I worked hard for the first year after to make sure that as soon as they took my halo off, so I had to be placed because of the C2 I was in, like people see in movies when an accident happens, they wear the big halo brace, and that was my reality. That wasn't a movie. So for months and months and months, I'm trapped in this where I can't turn, I can't look up, and I can do nothing but just sit here. You know, I couldn't even really sit up. I'm just in a hospital bed 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And so once that came off, my goal was standing. I actually stood prior to it coming off. And that was like the milestone, was that once I stood, I said, I'm going to do everything now. I'm going to walk. I'm going to do it all. You know, no matter what it takes, I'm going to do everything. So,
awesome. So you didn't believe, you didn't take as your internal belief that you're not going to be able to walk ever again?
No, I did not believe that for 1 second.
So how long was actually your recovery? How many months did you spend in the hospitals, and just how long was the whole process from the accident and actually when you were able to start walking?
All right. So I would say for the first hospital was around a month, maybe a little more.
Okay.
After I went from, you know, the life support to the ICU, then to the stable areas of the hospital, then they said, okay, you're stable enough now to go to a rehab hospital, and then we can try to teach you the tools that you're going to need with this new life that you have. So I went there, and in the rehab hospital, I became very depressed because that was the first time where it wasn't about survival. When I was in the first hospital, it was about just trying to live. So I wasn't really aware of what was going on. When I moved to the second one, when it was, okay, now I'm alive, and this is what life is now, I became very depressed. And I felt like I needed to get out of there. And so I told my mother that I needed to, or I didn't think I was going to make it. They then had our entire living room. This is how supportive my parents were in this. Had our entire living room transformed into a hospital room.
Wow.
So they got, you know, machines and hospital beds and all of the tools that we would need, and had set up for visiting nurses to come in and do the routine things and do my therapy at home, just to try to make me feel more comfortable and settling into what would become my new life.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think without that part of the recovery, I don't know what would have happened for me. So that was a month in the hospital, a month there, and then probably another 6 months at home trying to build the strength before I think I stood for the first time. So I think initially was maybe, we'll say 6 months total before I stood. But as far as recovery fully, I would say I'm still recovering today. I'm still recovering today. So.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm really happy to hear this, because I'm talking about my ankle like that as well. I'm still recovering. I'm still seeing changes on a monthly basis. It's not like on a daily basis, because when you are just at the beginning of your recovery journey, you see more things happening in a really short period of time. And then later on, the changes are more subtle. So you actually still see some changes, but not as close together. And I'm really happy to hear this, because, you know, I think that the mindset and what we think and how we approach this recovery is extremely important. So because you think and you believe that you're still recovering, your body is still adapting and still improving. So I'm really, really happy to hear this because, you know, I heard so many stories. So I know a lot about ankles because that was my fracture. And so many times I hear from clients and also other people, they say that, you know, the doctor told me that my ankle will get as good as it gets in the first year, and then that's it. And I think this is a bit horrible because, you know, 1 year can be such a short period of time. So great that you are still recovering.
Yeah, I'm actually still hearing that from doctors.
Still?
That there's, well, you know, there's nothing you can do. You have the advanced arthritis, you have the hardware in there. You're not going to get any better. You're only going to get worse. And, you know, I've learned my own ways to make it better.
Yeah.
Things that they weren't telling me, that I learned on my own, that, you know what, this will help with my arthritis, this will help with inflammation, this will help. And they, you know, they weren't pills or surgeries. They were things that, you know, everyone can do once you learn these tools.
So what kind of hardware do you have? Is everything in your ankles or do you have anything in your spine?
No, so with my neck, the halo was able to keep it in place. They weren't sure if they were going to need a surgery or not. So it was kind of experimental or just testing to see. So it did. My C2 ended up fusing to my C3. Okay. So instead of the separate vertebrae there, I've got kind of like a block here, which does give a lot of arthritis and a lot of stiffness and limited mobility because I don't have the range of motion that you would have if they were separate. But I'm standing and I'm walking, so I will take take that if that's the alternative to, you know, the other side. And as far as my ankles, I've got I believe it is a plate and 10 pens in each ankle.
Okay.
So, it really just looks like a hardware store inside when I see these X-rays. And, you know, they're going each and every direction and through here because, as I said, my feet were turned backwards, so they weren't really even attached. And the fact that they were able to even turn them back around and get them attached back on, and, you know, all the blood flow and everything wasn't lost, and they are still living parts of my body. I mean, I think that is miraculous that is still there.
Yes. Oh, I'm extremely, extremely happy for you. And, you know, you have unbreakable ankles with all the hardware and everything.
Yes.
So what would you say that was the hardest part physically about your recovery?
Physically, to me, the hardest part was just really walking. After being bedridden, I guess I'd say, for 6 months plus, your muscles atrophy, everything becomes foreign again, and it was like a baby learning to walk for the first time.
Yes.
You know, because I didn't have one good leg. You know, a lot of times in this where you break one side, but you still got the other one that you can kind of lean on for support. I had two bad ones, and there was nothing that I could lean on for support. So while I was in the hospital bed for those months, I'm, you know, doing flexing, even though they're not moving. I'm still flexing them to try to just keep those nerves and keep the mind muscle connection everywhere. And I'm flexing my calves and flexing my quads and flexing my arms just to try to make sure everything was still going to work, because I knew that I'm still going to make this happen. So even though I couldn't see it moving, I was still in my mind trying to make these things work. And I think that was what got me standing and then walking so quickly after, because I could have gone the other direction and I'm just going to sit here. I'm not even going to try because I'm not seeing it moving, so it must not be moving. But I went the other way.
So you are actually practicing all the time seeing before you can actually do something. So you saw in your mind and you were doing everything that you can to move that ankles, and before you actually were able to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I was practicing wiggling my toes and they weren't moving, but I just kept going at it. I was practicing trying to move up and down my feet or my legs and doing whatever. And, it wasn't happening, but I was still forcing the muscles not to lose that connection. Cause I knew that if I didn't try that, it would just lose the connection and then I wouldn't be able to do it.
And so that was the physical part, but what was the hardest thing mentally about your recovery?
Mentally was definitely the fact that in those times when I was laying in bed at night and just thinking at 19 years old, like, so I'm going to have my 20s, my everything is going to be this. There is not going to be, the time when I should be exploring life and the world and living whimsically and, playing sports or doing activities or doing that. That is not in my future. And that was devastating as someone who prior to that was so active. I played sports, I played music, I liked doing all the things that teenagers like to do, and then thinking that like, wow, this is going to be a long time of not doing this ever again.
Yeah.
So I think that was the hardest part mentally, and it crushed me really.
Yeah. So how did you get over this? Did you get any help, or how did you actually push yourself over these challenges, these mental challenges?
I really didn't at first. It took a long time.
Yeah.
It took a long time. It took a long time of sadness, depression. Really dark times.
Yeah.
It was really dark trying to deal with that. And I guess if it wasn't for the darkness, I wouldn't have come out of it. Some people might have been more motivated and were able to stay positive and happy. And, even though I was still trying to do the things I needed to take the steps, the emotional toll was still really heavy on me.
Did you take any drugs, any antidepressants or anything like that?
Yep. I was, my mother could tell there was definitely something going on with me. I was not happy. And so they said, well, he obviously has post-traumatic stress and post-traumatic depression. And they said that's totally common for someone who has an accident like this. It would be odd if you didn't have these feelings after something like this.
Yeah.
So they did prescribe antidepressives and things like that. But it was, in my personal experience, what happened with that was that it made, it stopped my progress.
Mm-hmm.
It stopped my progress. It made me completely empty and, really a shell of the person I was. It just stopped who I was. And then it made it so that I didn't want to push harder. I didn't want to go forward.
Yeah.
I said, all right, this is what I'm going to be, and this is what's going. And I'll
So in a way, you actually became numb.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I was like, the way my mother described it, she said that I was like a stopped clock. That it was going around and then it just stopped. And no progress being made, but I didn't feel sad because I didn't feel anything.
Yeah.
So I didn't feel motivated to try harder.
Yeah.
I didn't feel motivated to be healthy. I didn't feel motivated to do anything.
If you could talk to your younger self, if you could go back to that time, what would you advise to yourself with the knowledge that you have right now, with all the wisdom and everything that it's already behind you? What would you say to yourself in those dark moments?
Huh. That's really hard because I know that guy and he was really stubborn.
Yeah.
So talking to him was probably not easy.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't want to talk to him because I know other people probably felt the same way. So, but I mean, really, I guess I really wouldn't tell him anything only because he needed to learn those lessons. He needed to experience those hardships. He needed to make all the decisions, good and bad, that led me to where I am today. And I think that without each and every one of those trials and tribulations and ups and downs and good and bad, I don't think you can get to a place of understanding and actualization without going through that. So I don't think I'd tell him anything. I would just watch and know that at the end, he comes out on the right side.
Okay. Wow. This is really interesting, you know, because there are so many people who wish to go back in time and usually just that the accident wouldn't happen. But also, I hear a lot of the times that, oh, if I would knew this before, I would do something differently. So it's really interesting that you would just stand by and just let it happen because you needed this experience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think that's, any good journey or even like a hero story, he has something awful go on first, which makes him push to be stronger. And if he just had a life of comfort and happiness, he might not have gotten there.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I feel the same way about my story.
Yeah. Oh, that's your story is definitely a hero story, you know, with ankles twisted on the other side, with your neck, with C2, with this, that you're not going to be walking ever again. And now, you know, I know that you have pretty active life and you are walking around. So it's definitely a hero story.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if we talk about, let's say, 2 to 3 things that you did or changed or you were doing during your recovery that you really think that helped you and that were crucial for your recovery. So mostly on the mental side, because you talked about physically that you were pushing yourself, but what were you doing or what did you change during your recovery that you really think that was crucial?
Let's see. I think the thing that allowed me to progress was to stop medicating with pills as well as with self-medicating with alcohol. I had not been a drinker or anything prior to this. That hit, and it was just, I'm numb. How can I become more numb? After I started taking the pills, and I said, well, I need some alcohol to wash that down also. And it really, the one led to another. I think the pills led to the alcohol, but then when they met and came, they were like perfect partners in stopping my life. And, I called it the broken record. When you hear a record and it's just playing the same thing over and over again and it can't get past that point, I was stuck like that. And I think that once I was able to free myself from the addiction of both of those, I mean, even though they were prescribed and I was taking them as I should have, there was a definite physical dependence that I had developed with these pills. So when I stopped that, I was able to actually sit back and reevaluate the situation, not just say, well, this is the situation, there's nothing I can do. It was there, I said, no, there is something I can do. I can move past this. I can look to the future. I can move forward. I can be happy again. And
so was there anything that clicked inside of you, or did something happen when you change your mind and stop using drugs, pills, and alcohol? So how did this process happen that you were actually able to get over this?
Oh, well, there was no real major event that took place. I guess it was just more about educating myself about, let's say, natural medicine.
Yeah.
Natural ways to combat depression,
Yeah.
natural ways to combat addiction. And I think that was really what it was. It was knowledge first and foremost. Is that once I became more educated about what I was putting in my body, and that what I was putting in my body that was meant, I thought, to help or mask what was going on, was making it worse.
Yeah.
So I think that was the first thing, was to become educated and then see that there are alternatives. Go in that direction. And it worked for me. It absolutely worked for me. I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Oh, definitely we wouldn't be, because probably your future would definitely be different if you would stay where you were and, be numb and just accept that this is your life now.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you change anything else? So these were the pills and alcohol, but would you, if you would go back right now, I know that you said that you wouldn't change anything, but let's say, would you change anything else?
If I could change anything, I would say, I don't know, somehow, if I could have had the same thing happen, minus the pain, minus the excruciating pain, that if I'm honest, it still exists today. Some days are better than others. I've learned tools and techniques now so that I can have more good days than bad days. But there have been times where I would have a bad week or a bad month, where the swelling and the inflammation from the arthritis and my ankles and then my neck, I can't turn my head. There would be really awful times. But I've now learned ways naturally to prevent and really just increase the good, even though there's pain there. So I might have pain every single day, but it won't be at a 10. It'll be at a 4. And I think that's the one thing. If I could change, I'd have pain at a 0.
That would definitely be a really, really good thing. Yeah, being pain-free, when you feel your body in that way, definitely changes a lot of things in your life.
Yes.
Yeah. I truly believe that accidents happen for a reason. And I also believe that life is always happening for us and not to us or against us. So my question is, why do you think you needed this experience? Do you think that there was something that wasn't really working for you at that time and you really need a clear sign that you have to stop and do something differently, or anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know it at the time, but I was lost completely. Mentally and spiritually, I was completely lost. I was spiraling out of control, didn't know it. Because again, you're 19, I'm a teenager, you think that this is how you're supposed to live. And even though like I said, I didn't drink or do drugs or anything, you can still be spiraling out of control in other ways where, you think that going out every night and hanging out and doing these things are actually a good way to live, even as a teenager, and it's really not. And I think that the accident stopped me in my tracks, like literally. And it was the best thing that could have happened to me at the time, because I was on the way, I could have become a statistic in prison or dead as just a young black male, teenager, 20s. I mean, I absolutely could have gone in that direction. But I think it happened for a reason. And I think that, my not only physical, but spiritual, my soul was saved. And I didn't always see it that way at the time when it happened. But looking back now, I see absolutely I wouldn't change a thing, because it's the ends have justified the means of getting here, as far as my mental and spiritual health. And I think that I will take that over physical health any single day of the week, because that's what really matters. As you said before, this is just a shell. We're just a vessel. And I think what's in here is more important, and that has to be healthy, because then it doesn't matter if you have, a healthy body and a sick mind, or a sick heart, or a sick soul. I don't think it matters.
Yeah, and definitely, it's really hard to see something good when you are just at the beginning of your recovery, and, you are in that pain and actually in that box you are living. And I know that when I was at the beginning of my recovery, so probably I was around four months, I was still on the crutches, and I talked to a lady, and she said, yeah, well, I know about the lady that broke her ankle, and her recovery lasted, I think, for a year or a year and a half. And, I was at 3 months time, and it was, for me, 1 year. It was so long. It was so into the future, and it was horrible to just to think about something like this. But like you said, it's really hard to see something good in a really disastrous time.
Right.
Yeah. So a few years, you changed your diet as well. What kind of changes did you do?
So when I was stuck in my broken record days,
yes,
not only did I not care about what I was doing physically, mentally, spiritually, I didn't care about what I put in my body on a level of food. I ate whatever was there. I ate probably most of the time junk food, because I found comfort in that.
Mm-hmm.
I found comfort in the foods that were definitely not good for you, but to me at the time, it tasted really good. So that's all that really mattered. And I found myself at my highest point, I want to say 320 pounds. So, and that doesn't happen overnight. That's a long time of just not really caring about yourself, really, because I didn't care about what I was putting in my body, whether it be a substance or whether it be a food. I had no care for what I was putting in. And so when I met my partner, Chelsea, she is the one who really inspired me to take a look at everything that I was doing and, change. When we met, we really thought that we could be positive influences on each other, is really what it came down to. And I think that in any relationship, that's really what it comes down to. You can either both enable each other to do awful, both go in that direction together, and you'll stay together because two people doing bad together are going to be super happy. Or you can change for the better and say, let's push each other to be the best versions of ourselves. And so, it started with, well, let's eat less meat and see how that goes. Okay, let's eat no meat, but I'll be like a pescatarian and I'll eat fish still. And then that transformed into, let's eat no meat. It's really not work. And, you know, with these small changes, it really led up to her going fully plant-based vegan, eating no animal product at all. And me still holding on to that little bit of, I'm not really ready, which is funny because I had been through high school. I was a vegetarian, and in college I decided, oh, I'm going to be vegan also. And then that accident hit me, and then like everything I had known was just out the window.
Yeah.
So it was funny because deep down I knew I had already done this. This was already who I was, and it was kind of a return to that. And it just got to the point where I was seeing her success, and I said, I don't want to be left behind. I don't
wait for me.
Right. I don't want to be left behind. And I, while I was teetering in that pescatarian, still eating animal products things, it was overnight. I said, this is the end. And I quickly, when I cut out completely all animal products, I lost about 70 pounds in just a matter of months. I mean, it was not at all some long, drawn-out process. It was cut everything out, make no more excuses. And I want to say it took maybe 6 to 8 months, and it was 70 pounds gone.
Wow. Just with the change of your diet.
Right.
Yeah. So what kind of changes? Did you notice any difference in your ankles, with your spine, with all the injuries when you changed your diet? Did something change in your body as well?
Yes, it was, as I was talking about those days where I have the good days and the bad days, I noticed that becoming plant-based now, I have way more good days than bad. I mean, there would be days where and Chelsea being so helpful and so understanding would know that this is a bad day. He's not going to be able to get out of bed today. So, you know, she would be able to pick up my slack around the house and everything else, even more than she already does, because she's so amazing in like understanding that I do have, you know, physical limitations. But the change in the diet is really what made it so that I have way less bad days, and it has enabled me to now become more physical, doing activities, going to the gym, being able to take a walk outside. You know, something that's so simple as being able to take a walk in the woods was, until I changed my diet, wasn't not even a possibility, because I was always so swollen. I was always so inflamed. I was always in the constant pain. And I think a lot of that had to do, I mean, it's obvious, the proof is there. It was in the diet. You know, yeah. I was making myself worse, and I didn't know that it was the food that was doing it.
So would you advise someone who is having a lot of pain but still eats like a regular diet, or maybe like you said that, you know, you found a comfort in a junk food, would you advise someone to do these kind of changes?
I would say 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I guess if I had to go back and re-answer that question of what I would have told, would have said, you need to go vegan immediately. A whole lot of these problems, you could probably get rid of them. Just only eat plants. Yeah. And you know, I myself probably would have listened, because I would have said, you know what? That's what I was doing before. So maybe I should go back to that. And so, so maybe that would be the one thing that I would have advised myself to have a return to that, because that really has, you know, changed everything in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So we found something. You would actually advise something to your younger self.
Yes, that is the one thing that I would advise my younger self.
Yeah.
It is
So
important.
what kind of advice, because right now, people that are injured are watching this, and some of them are in pain, some of them are in bed, some of them, they don't see any bright future. People have really different experiences with injuries, with accidents. So what kind of advice would you give someone that is going through something similar right now?
The advice would be is that no matter what problem you're facing, mental, physical, spiritual, whatever it is, you can always overpower and overcome. Always. There is nothing too big that you cannot make a change and make a difference. Now, you might not be able to completely reverse everything. I mean, there are some things. I mean, I'm not, my ankles are never going to not have these hardware in it, but I can find a place of acceptance and understanding and actual strength from that. So, it isn't going to change what happened, but I can change the way I see and move forward from that and then overcome. And everyone can do that, no matter what the injury was. Everyone can do that.
Jae, this is beautiful and this is powerful. And, you talked during this interview a lot about mental aspect and how you were pushing yourself. And mind-body connection is such a strong and powerful connection. And we can do a lot with our bodies. And sometimes even if it feels that it's impossible, I truly believe that with our mind, we can move towards that and even achieve things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It all starts with a PMA, positive mental attitude. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes. Not PMS, PMA.
PMA.
Yeah.
That PMA.
PMA. Jae, I'm extremely happy to have you here today. And I have to say that when we met, I fall in love with your energy and your enthusiasm and happiness, and you are smiling all the time. And, I think that this is also one of the reasons why maybe you were able to push yourself out of this misery, but also, I don't know, maybe your accident gave you something to be happy about your life. So, you are still alive, even though you were pronounced dead at the scene. You were in coma, the recovery was super long. So it's just so inspiring to see you glowing, even after, 16 years, and you are still recovering, like you said.
Yes. Yes. Well, I'm just thankful that I can tell other people who have gone or are going through the same thing, because unfortunately I didn't have anyone, and I think that my progress might have been slowed because I didn't have something like this, where either a community or just even someone to speak to, or to listen to someone speak about it. I think I would have taken a much longer time had I not had something like this. So I'm like thrilled to be able, if one other person, within the sound of my voice hears it and says, wow, that's inspired me to push harder and farther and stronger, then that is great for me.
Well, that's the reason why we are here, to inspire others, to give them hope, and really to show them that they are capable of doing these things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So just one last thing, you mentioned your amazing partner, Chelsea, that I met as well. And you started a few months ago, you also started with a website, and on social media, you're actually sharing your story through difficulties, because Chelsea also has an incredible story, inspiring story with her illness. So can you share with viewers and those that are listening this, where they can find you and more information about you?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. And I will have to say that Chelsea's story mine is like a drop in the bucket compared to hers. I mean, it really, I mean, I think meeting her also is what inspired me to even push forward more, because she is so inspiring. I mean, she is really, what she's been able to overcome in her life is unbelievable. And I suggest everyone check out our website. It's leafcakelife.com. We're on all the social media sites, Facebook and Instagram and things like that, with the same name, Leaf Cake Life. So
yes. And I'm going to also post the link to your website and social media below this video on the website. So people will definitely find you.
Yes, definitely. Definitely do it. Come say hello, follow us on Instagram, and let us meet you and see you and become friends. And let's really build a community around something really positive here.
Jae, thank you so much for being here today. I'm inspired, you know, even though my recovery wasn't the easiest one, just listening to your story, mine sounds like a, you know, like a drop in the sea.
Well, Bob Marley once said that every man thinks his burden is the heaviest, but who feels it knows it more. And I think that that's absolutely true. I think that's absolutely true.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jae, so much. And talk to you soon.
Thank you. Peace.
Bye-bye.